In this episode, we're going to focus on a set of services that feel routine and invisible when they work, but become major security risks when they are misconfigured or abused. Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, DHCP, and other core network services that quietly shape how devices connect and what they trust. Beginners sometimes assume attackers need sophisticated exploits to cause serious harm, but many real incidents begin with something simpler. A device is given the wrong network settings, the wrong resolver, or the wrong default gateway, and from that point forward, the device behaves exactly as designed while heading in the wrong direction. That is the dangerous part about core services. They are trusted by default because devices need them to operate, which means a small change at the infrastructure layer can influence many devices at once. We will discuss what DHCP does, why its trust model can be abused, how misconfigurations create accidental exposure, and how controlling these services reduces both attacker opportunity and operational chaos. At a high level, the DHCP process involves a device broadcasting that it needs configuration and a server responding with an offer of configuration. The device then accepts an offer and the server confirms the assignment. The specifics are less important than the trust relationship. The device is essentially saying I need settings, and it will accept the settings offered by a DHCP server it can hear on the local segment. In many environments, there is an assumption that the local network is controlled and that only authorized DHCP servers exist. When that assumption is true, DHCP is safe and convenient. When that assumption is false, such as on poorly controlled networks or where attackers can plug in a device, DHCP can be abused through a rogue server. A rogue DHCP server is an unauthorized server that responds to device requests and hands out attacker-chosen settings. If a device accepts those settings, the attacker gains influence over where the device sends traffic and which services it trusts. The most dangerous settings a rogue DHCP server can hand out are the default gateway and the DNS resolver, because those settings determine how a device reaches the rest of the network and how it translates names into destinations. If the default gateway is set to an attacker-controlled device, the attacker can position themselves as the route to remote networks, enabling interception or disruption. If the DNS resolver is set to an attacker-controlled server, the attacker can control name resolution, redirecting users to malicious destinations or preventing them from reaching legitimate services. This is why DHCP abuse can feel like magic to victims, because they did not click anything wrong and they did not type the wrong address. Their device was simply told to trust the wrong infrastructure. Even strong encryption does not remove all risk here, because an attacker can still cause outages, can collect metadata, can attempt to redirect users to lookalike services, and can exploit any services that do not validate endpoints robustly. The core issue is that configuration is control, and DHCP is a configuration distribution system. Misconfiguration of legitimate DHCP can also create serious security problems even without attackers, and this is where beginners should learn to respect how small changes ripple outward. For example, if a DHCP scope is configured incorrectly, devices might receive addresses that overlap with other networks, causing routing confusion and unexpected reachability. If the default gateway is wrong, devices may send traffic to a path that bypasses intended security controls. If name resolution settings point to an unreliable or mismanaged resolver, users may experience failures that look like application outages. If lease times are poorly chosen, devices may churn addresses too frequently or hold onto stale settings too long. These issues are often treated as operational problems, but they are security problems too because they affect segmentation, monitoring accuracy, and the predictability of network boundaries. Security depends on knowing what should be reachable and how traffic should flow, and misconfiguration undermines that knowledge. When defenders cannot trust their own network structure, attackers gain room to operate unnoticed. DHCP also interacts with identity in subtle ways, because many environments associate logs and access decisions with IP addresses. If addresses change frequently or are assigned unpredictably, investigating incidents becomes harder because it becomes difficult to map an action to a device or user over time. If an attacker can manipulate address assignment, they may be able to create confusion during investigations or evade simple controls that depend on stable addressing. This does not mean you should rely on static addresses everywhere, but it does mean you should understand that address management influences accountability and monitoring. Good DHCP control includes maintaining clear records of leases and ensuring that assignment patterns are consistent with the environment's needs. It also includes recognizing that core services are part of the security evidence chain. If your ability to investigate depends on knowing which device had which address, then DHCP lease records become important evidence. Beginners should connect this to the broader theme that security includes traceability, not just prevention. Core services beyond DHCP include things like name resolution, time synchronization, and routing infrastructure, and they share a common security story. When these services are wrong, many systems become wrong at once. Time synchronization is a strong example because many security mechanisms rely on accurate time, including logs, authentication token validity, and certificate validation windows. If time is wrong, logs become hard to correlate, and authentication flows can break or become unreliable. Another example is routing infrastructure, where incorrect routing can expose sensitive networks or disrupt controls. Even directory services and authentication services can be considered core because if identity systems are compromised or misconfigured, attackers may gain broad access. The reason to bundle these concepts in your mind is that they represent foundational dependencies. Attackers often target foundations because foundations provide leverage. If they can control the service that tells devices where to go, what time it is, or who is trusted, they can influence many outcomes without attacking each application directly. This is why these services must be treated as critical assets with strong access controls and careful change management. Rogue infrastructure is not limited to DHCP servers because attackers can also introduce rogue access points, rogue resolvers, or rogue gateways. The theme is the same. Devices join networks and accept certain information from the environment, and attackers try to become the environment. Once an attacker becomes the gateway or the resolver, they can shape traffic flows and observation opportunities. This is why network access control and segmentation matter conceptually, because limiting which devices can join sensitive segments reduces attacker opportunities to set up rogue services. It is also why physical security matters, because plugging a device into a switch port can be enough to participate in local trust mechanisms. For beginners, the key lesson is that security does not begin at the application. It begins at the infrastructure assumptions that allow applications to operate. When those assumptions are weak, higher-layer security can be undermined through redirection, disruption, and manipulation. From a defense perspective, controlling DHCP and core services involves a few stable principles that remain true even as specific technologies vary. First, limit who can provide these services by controlling where servers can connect and by restricting unauthorized devices from acting as infrastructure. Second, monitor for unexpected infrastructure behavior, such as multiple DHCP servers responding where only one should exist, or sudden changes in network configuration patterns. Third, apply change control and accountability so configuration changes are deliberate, reviewed, and traceable. Fourth, design segmentation so that even if a local segment is compromised, the blast radius is limited and critical systems are not exposed. Fifth, maintain redundancy and resilience for core services so outages do not cascade into total failure. These principles are not about memorizing a specific device setting. They are about treating core services as critical security controls because they are the mechanisms that define normal operation. If you protect these mechanisms, you make many classes of attacks harder. Exam scenarios about DHCP and core services often describe symptoms like users being redirected unexpectedly, devices losing connectivity intermittently, or systems suddenly using a different resolver or gateway than expected. In those scenarios, the correct analysis often involves suspecting a rogue DHCP server or a misconfigured DHCP scope, especially if many devices are affected at once and the behavior started suddenly. Another common scenario is a user connecting to a public or guest network and then experiencing suspicious behavior, which can involve rogue infrastructure providing malicious configuration. In questions about securing these services, strong answers typically emphasize controlling who can run core services, preventing unauthorized devices from participating, and monitoring for anomalies. Answers that focus only on endpoint antivirus or user education may be helpful generally, but they do not address the root cause when the infrastructure is handing out bad configuration. The key is to match the control to the layer of the problem. DHCP is infrastructure, so you need infrastructure controls. By the end of this episode, you should be able to explain that DHCP is a configuration distribution system that provides devices with the settings that determine where traffic goes and which services are trusted. Because it is trusted by default, it becomes a powerful target, and rogue or misconfigured DHCP can redirect traffic by changing default gateway and DNS resolver settings. Core services more broadly are leverage points because they influence many systems at once, and failures in these services can create both security incidents and widespread outages. Controlling these services means limiting who can provide them, monitoring for anomalies, applying discipline change control, and designing network segmentation to limit blast radius. When you understand DHCP and core service risks this way, you stop treating them as background plumbing and start seeing them as critical security foundations that, if neglected, can hand attackers the keys to your environment.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.